Hey Josh. So this is David. I'm just getting back to you on your paper. Sorry it took so long. I had a lot to do last night. So let's get to it. I really enjoyed your paper, and the reason why I enjoyed it is because it's the best paper that I've seen thus far, this semester at least, from anybody that's turned in a paper. And so I can tell that when you took 201, it really did help a lot. So there are a few things that I have to say, but most of them are good comments that I have. So even though I do disagree with this, Brother Ostad does not really like broad sayings like in this first paragraph. For centuries, art was restricted to certain rules and practices that were deemed acceptable by the art world until the creation of Dadaism. So instead of saying for centuries, just mention that art was restricted to certain rules and practices that were deemed acceptable by the art world until the creation of Dadaism. That way you don't have to, as Brother Ostad puts it, explain about all of those century-long aspects in order to have a person understand what you mean by that. So I know that most people within the humanities would understand that, but we're trying to write to somebody who might not know as much about the humanities as you do, or as Brother Ostad knows, and things like that. And since you are writing technically to Brother Ostad, he doesn't like those sayings, so I would take that out. Anyway, um, let's see here. Um, so I really liked the rest of the paragraph because you give your thesis statement, and it's a perfect thesis statement. I like that you argue, according to Harvard Writing Center, you argue what you're arguing, that art produced by the ideas of Dadaism all sought to push boundaries of art at the time of their creation, as well as challenge previously. Um, and the reason that they did this is because they challenged previously accepted aspects of art and inspired other artists to do the same. So and then you demonstrate how you're going to argue it with those art pieces. So I really like that a lot. Just wanted to mention that. I like this opening sentence because you give a background into what it is, what in advance of a broken arm is, and what a ready-made piece is. And so I like that. So this is the main point of your paragraph. As you know, that it said this declaration was a direct challenge to the previously held concept that art could be appreciated because of the skill it takes to create it, and then not everything could be art. So these are the two argument points that you're trying to argue. That that this piece argues that it doesn't just take skill, and that anything could be art. That is your argument, that this piece is taking away with those and abolishing those. So if you're going to say that within this paragraph, there needs to be some backing to that, a demonstration of how it does that and why it does that. So if you're going to argue both those points, then I would seek for content that argues both of them. So you said that through this piece, Duchamp demonstrated his belief that anything could be art, whether it took skill to create or not, and that all it took was something willing to call anything a piece of art. Someone willing to call anything a piece of art. So I like your argument right here, but why does that piece do that? Get down to the deepest why, as my teacher taught me when I was writing, and as my program director always tells us to do, is delve deep. Why does this piece do that? I know that it's a direct contradiction, as you mentioned later. That's a direct contradiction to the previously held notion of required skill. But how and why does this piece do that? Obviously, he went and took a marker and he wrote on it. But let's get down to this. Like, why would that? Why would Duchamp break through this boundary with this piece? And so try to delve deep, deep, deep into this, and even mention certain aspects of the shovel if necessary. I'm not telling you how to write it. I'm just giving you a little bit of feedback. I really think that this is a good paper. And so going down here to the next paragraph, how did it give freedom of choice to the artist in how it was made? So you mentioned that because he made it so differently, it gave freedom of choice But how did this piece do that? How did it further the agenda of an artist's freedom of choice? In what ways? Is it because that he took the bicycle wheel and attached it to the top of a kitchen stool? Is it just that action that caused this opening of furthering of an agenda of an artist's freedom of choice? Or was it the fact that he did it at a time when nobody accepted it, that he did something that was just unacceptable, or it was just out of the ordinary? So these are things that you might want to explain even further. And then you kind of switch to on a like completely different topic on this next section, while enjoyable to look at for many. So I would create a transition here, mentioning to change subject a bit, or maybe even creating a new paragraph for this, and arguing that main point, and then changing the paragraph to argue in what ways this piece helped to further the agenda for later Jackson Pollock. I gave you a few grammatical things that you can do that might improve the paper. You can take them as you wish. You don't have to change them. And then this comment at the bottom. I say that in your thesis you teach that the works are inspired others to do the same, which I think is what you're trying to teach here, is that Jackson Pollock was inspired by this piece of art. Being able to have the freedom to make choice and with deliberate movements with Jackson Pollock. However, it's never mentioned getting down to the main point of why this piece, of why that is the case. So you mentioned that that Jackson Pollock did the same thing, but it's never mentioned, oh, and this demonstrates that he was also inspired by Duchamp, who came before him. So just try to get down to your main point, complete that idea, and complete your argument. I didn't put anything in this last paragraph, but I think some of the things that I've taught you can apply to that last paragraph. That's often what I do, is I make comments at the beginning, and then I think that you can go through and you're smart enough that you can make these changes the rest of the paper. And then just how and why again. So get down to the deepest why. Keep asking yourself, why does this happen? Why is this the case? Why does this push boundaries? Why? And give a brief overview of your arguments that you gave throughout the paper. It could be like Duchamp's did this, and just go through each of the paragraphs and write it. So this piece of art inspired many other artists to push the boundaries of art into newer and bolder directions by this, and by this, and by this. And that can be in one sentence. It'll be a long sentence, but it'll be a good one because it demonstrates all of the ideas that you've talked about, and then it rounds back to the thesis statement. Always restate your thesis statement in the end, but with a difference. And always, for every paragraph, point back to that thesis statement. Think, does this back up my thesis statement? And if not, try to throw that out. And so these might be a few ideas that can help you, and I hope that it does help you. Let me know if I can do anything else for you. You have a great writing style, and I think you did a good job, Josh. Thanks.